In business and in law, the power of collaboration and partnership is critical to success. I'm happy to introduce our next panel, who will share their story of collaboration between the business community and education community and how they have impacted the community that they serve. This session is appropriately titled, The Powers in Partnership. As we all know, working together makes a difference. Joining us today are Mary Graham, the Chief Advancement Officer of Charleston Metro Chamber, Emily Reynolds, Senior Vice President for Heritage Trust Federal Credit Union, Robin Willis, Career Academies Director at the Charleston Metro Chamber, and Kim Wilson, who I think we already heard about in the prior presentation, Principal at R.B. Stahl High School in North Charleston. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm going to stand because I can't sit still while I go through slides. It's just not my nature. So if you allow me, I'm going to run through some slides that kind of gives you an overview of what we're all about, and then we'll have our panel discussion. Here we go. So we began several years ago with hearing from the business community in louder and louder voices each year that they could not find the skills they need in our community. And so we set about in 2014 to bring in some help from outside to help us assess what were the gaps looking like in our community, to try to document what that said. And our story was pretty astounding. We were shown that over the 5-year period from 2013 to 2018, we could expect 25,000 new jobs to be created in our community. And these are among the fastest growing: industrial production in the manufacturing sector, computer, IT and software development, science and engineering degrees, sales and marketing, medical, and business were the fastest growing sectors. And the bar represents the percentage increase during that 5-year period. The circle was the number of jobs in the market at the time of the study. Whoops. Okay. Shortages were expected in many fields in our community, and most of them were STEM related. As you've learned probably in your time here in Charleston, our economy is really growing very rapidly, and it's really transforming. We were traditionally a service-based economy, and with the addition of Boeing and Volvo and Mercedes and those facilities, we have moved to a STEM-based economy, and we have big gaps in what those jobs are, and the number of annual job openings and the number of degrees that we're producing, and as well what we're going to talk about what's going on in our high schools to prepare kids to be able to be employed in those jobs. So just another, the number of job openings in key fields in the community. So I'm going too fast. I'm missing something. I'm sorry. What's going on? There. So why did we do this talent strategy? Again, as I said when we started, it was to understand where the gaps really were so we could work to fill those gaps. But the eye-opening statistic for us was that the jobs that were being created in our community were being filled. Employers were finding the skills they needed, but they were primarily finding those skills with new people moving to our community that had those skills. And so for the Chamber, it was a big wake-up call that we needed to do something very rapid in our community to ensure that our own students, our own children, our own grandchildren were going to have every opportunity to take advantage of these great jobs being created in our community. So the consultants looked at the curriculum that was in place in our high schools across the 3-county region and came back to us with suggestions of where we needed to fill gaps in the high school level as well as where we needed to fill gaps at the higher education degree level. And so the Chamber at the same time had been working with our 4 school districts in our region for many years, studying models around the country of how we could increase high school graduation rates, and better prepare our students. So all of this came together at the same time that we implemented career academies in our community. We started 3 years ago in a pilot program in 2 of our high schools, and today are in 3 of our 21 high schools across 3 districts in our community. So what is a career academy? A career academy is a smaller learning community, if you will. Think about a school within a school. Students in the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade choose a career academy pathway, and those are centered around career technical education classes, the electives, the fun courses that students want to take, and they become more engaged in their school activities. It becomes more relevant to them, and what happens is you see increases in high school graduation rates, decreases in absenteeism rates, decreases in disciplines, and students become better prepared. Our role in the career academies is to bring business partners to the table, because if we have studied these models around the country, the best ones, the most successful, have robust business participation. And so we now have 150 business partners involved in our career academies in our region. They work alongside with our teachers in helping them bring that relevance to the classroom. And career academies also incorporate something called project-based learning. So from the business perspective, what project-based learning does is it helps students learn to work in teams, to work collaboratively, to use critical thinking skills, to be able to think proactively. All the things that the business community is screaming about that they can't find in the workforce, those soft skills. Project-based learning helps to put those into the classroom, and students learn those without kind of knowing that they're learning those skills. So our pilot year in 2013 was with 7 career academies in 5 of our area high schools with 25 business partners. And at the end of the school year, we brought all of those people together and said, what worked, what didn't, do we want to make this a go, do we want to move forward? And the overwhelming response was, yes, this is working, we want to expand it and keep going. Our academies are targeted in those areas that we call the high demand fields. So we have STEM academies, science, technology, engineering, math. We have health sciences academies. We have business and IT academies, and we have culinary and hospitality academies. There are some others, but those are primarily where they're concentrated. The magic that happened that first year that we really learned about when we brought everybody together was the teachers and the businesses. The teachers they were a little skeptical going into it. It was like, what are all these business partners really going to do for me? And what happens is they meet on a monthly basis, the partners and the teachers, and they talk about what the teachers are going to be teaching over the next few weeks. And the businesses help them understand, well, this is how that actually applies in a real job in our community, in this kind of job. And the teachers found that that was the magic for them. It was having that resource, this partner all of a sudden with them at the table, helping them to bring that relevance back into the classroom. So we went into year 2 with expanding our academies, and this past year we have 60 academies in 21 high schools. Charleston County School District came on board this past year with academies across our school district, and we're now up to about 140, 150 business partners in those academies. So one of the challenges that we'll talk about a little bit is going from sort of 0 to 60 in 3 years was a pretty good trajectory of growth, and those have brought challenges to us as well. The high demand clusters, I've mentioned those already. The STEM are engineering, mechatronics, automotive, and welding. Health professions are health, biomed, and sports medicine. Computer science is programming and networking and cyber technology. Business is marketing and finance, and then culinary and hospitality. We actually have culinary kitchens in some of our high schools, and the kids are learning all about the culinary industry. Academy partner, I've really kind of run through this as well, that what the partners commit to, it's time and talent. It's committing to attending a monthly meeting with the teachers, with those advisory boards, and discussing what's going on. We have 3 times a year that we bring all of our academy partners and our educators together at the beginning of the year, midway through the year, and then we do a debrief at the end of every year. And we they also are, if they want to, can do other things like go into the classrooms, help provide field trip opportunities, other kinds of activities as well, if they can do that. If they don't, it's okay. We have every size business that are involved in our academies, from very small businesses to very large ones in our community. And the thing that's unique about what's going on in our region is that we are doing this as a region. Our school districts are all fully committed to the Career Academy model, and we are cross-pollinating, if you will. We share information across the school district, so if a teacher in Charleston County learns something that really works, we have an intranet where we post information and other teachers throughout the region can find out about that. And then the 3 times a year that we get everybody together, we're sharing that information with one another. 2 other things that we've also implemented along with the Academy. So the Chamber raised about $1 million 4 years ago to establish a scholarship fund. And we provide scholarships to graduates of the career academies to go on to Trident Technical College to pursue a 2-year degree, again in these high demand fields. And what's unique about our scholarships is we are targeting students with a 2.0 to a 2.9 GPA. We know that these students can't normally qualify for other kinds of scholarships, or in South Carolina, they're lottery scholarships that are available for higher education. And for the most part, a lot of these students, no one's talking to them about going to college. But because we're heavily involved in the classrooms and working with the teachers, we are helping them to identify students that have that C average GPA and can make it. Those teachers know which ones are the brightest of those groups, and so we now award scholarships to those students. And we're really excited that this year, our 3rd year in, we had 160 applicants, and we awarded 75 scholarships on May the 10th of this year. Kim, how many do you have? 11 from Stahl High School. The high schools across the region, we had students from almost every one of them apply, and 71% of those kids are the first ones in their family to go to college. This is just a quote. We have incredible documentation from these kids that we are really changing lives, and we get these letters from them and pass them around the chamber, and we all cry. And okay, the other thing that you're going to hear more about in the next panel, but I'm going to quickly introduce it, is we also started a youth apprenticeship program with juniors and seniors in high school in partnership with Apprenticeship South Carolina and Trident Technical College. And the Chamber's role is, again, working through the academies, helping to identify students that can go into the apprenticeships. And then we also pay for their tuition to attend Trident Tech, which is part of the apprentice program as well. And I don't want to steal the thunder of the next group. So at the end of a 2-year youth apprenticeship program, these kids have a high school diploma, they have certification from the Department of Labor, they have 2 years of job experience, and most of them, we hope, are going to have an offer for a full-time job. And they're debt-free. So the last slide. The other thing that kind of goes back to your previous panel, I came in when y'all were finishing up, but somebody was asking about what we're doing with parents to help prepare kids from birth on. And we do have an initiative in our community that's been created called Cradle to Career, Tri-County Cradle to Career. And this is a collective impact model. It's bringing all of the folks involved in trying to improve education together and have a common set of goals, work on issues in a common way. The Chamber has been asked to be the high school convener within the collaborative, and so because of our work already with the career academies, we are bringing all of those folks that are involved in high school level education improvement together and working on common ways to really help sustain and make our career academies even more successful. And we're not going to show the video. Okay, that's it for me. So. Yes, so let's get to the good stuff. Kim, you're up.
Okay, thank you. My name's Kim Wilson, and I welcome you to Charleston. I know you're here just to hear me speak, but that's okay. I applaud you for what you're doing and your interaction with educators. We couldn't experience the success at the school that I'm at if we didn't have the involvement from the business community, the Chamber of Commerce, and our higher education partners. We couldn't do the work that we do. And what I want to do is just kind of share some of that with you. You heard a little bit, but I get to live what Gene and Dr. Postwaite and the board members were talking about. I get to live that every day, and it's such a wonderful feeling to go into a building and know that you're really making an impact on children's lives. Reverend Mack mentioned a school, Wando High School. It's located over in Mount Pleasant, services Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island. I was there for 25 years, so I know that school. I saw it grow to 4,100 students, from 13 to 4,100 students. I worked with the National Principal of the Year, 2010 National Principal of the Year. It was a wonderful experience. Bill Murray was one of my parents. It doesn't get any better, right? I had a conference with him one year. It was the worst parent conference I ever had. All I could think about was Caddyshack. You know, it was terrible. It was terrible. But so I was asked to 6 years ago. I was asked to go over to Stall, which is just the opposite demographics. It had declining enrollment, had 830 students. It was considered a very dangerous school. The perception was that you walked in the building, you were going to get stabbed, or something dangerous, something was going to happen to you. I could have stayed at Wando and wrote out my years and went into oblivion. But going to Stall rejuvenated me. I'm telling you, it got me excited all over again. And this is my 42nd year in education. But it was such a wonderful change in my life. And when I first went there, it was so different that I really, I was hoping that I was going to make this big change. I didn't know what I was doing. I have to tell you that. So the first year I sat around and I just observed. And what I observed was that kids would come to school and go home, come to school, go home. No affect, no affect at all. And so then I'm pretty easy to get along with. So I go out in the hallways and I try to talk to students. They suck their teeth and walk away from me. I'm going, who does that? I'm the principal. Come back here and talk to me. And so after a while, I get my assistant principals together and I say, listen, we got to do something about this. I can't even talk to kids. They don't even like me. So I put these cards together, and it was lunch with the principal. And so what we did for the rest of the year, every Tuesday, I bought $5 pizzas, and kids would come in, and the principals would hand out these little cards, and I had 12. They could hand them out once a week. And I told the assistant principals, I said, listen, I just want to talk to kids. I don't care who they are, just kids. Don't give me good kids, bad kids, or any kids. Just give me kids. Well, I asked for it because that first meeting, I'm standing there, I'm all excited, waiting for the kids to come into my conference room. And every kid that came in had multicolored hair, multiple piercings, pregnant, dreads. I mean, of all the kids in the school, I asked for it. So they all came in, and there were several observations I made. Now, you got to understand that Stall, we're a high-poverty school. We're the largest Title I school in Charleston County. And all of our kids are pretty much on free and reduced lunch. We have no parental involvement. And someone mentioned that, and I can address that in just a minute. So these kids come in, and the first thing I noticed, now I remember when I was an adolescent, if there were pizzas in the room, I was going to eat every one of those pizzas. These kids would come in and sit down and didn't go to the food. And the reason being, high-poverty kids, the older kids eat last. And so they wait until everybody else gets the food. Real eye-opener for me. And then the second thing that I noticed, as we sat and we talked, and I shared with them my experience, and I grew up in West Virginia. That's not a high economic state right now, And I told them I wasn't born with this tie on, that everybody has their trials and tribulations and they get through them. And so as we went around the room and every kid told their story, what I found out was that out of the 12 kids in that room, 10 of them had both sets of parents in jail for multiple years. One kid was homeless, and the other kid had been kicked out of the home because she was pregnant and was living with a grandparent. So nobody in that room was living with their paternal parents. It was such an eye-opener. But what the great thing is, the next day when I went out in the hallway, these same kids who would never approach me came up and they were talking to me, and they brought 3 or 4 of their friends because they were wanting to get pizza the next week. You know? So I didn't care. I didn't care. So that was the transition that I made, and after they saw that this man was going to come back the second year, they realized that I wasn't going to give up on them. I wasn't going to be like everybody else in their life. So that brought me to what the first thing we addressed at Stall was the culture, because I would go to kids and they couldn't look you in the eye. They wouldn't talk to you. They wouldn't engage you. So we invited Anthony Muhammad. He's a school reformist, and he came to our school and he did an inventory of our school. And it's all about transforming school culture, an effective school culture. And we did book studies. And what we finally ended up with was a program called Capturing Kids' Hearts out of Texas. The Flippin Group runs it. And a guy named, I'm not kidding, making this up, his name's Flip Flippin. He's a psychoanalyst out of Texas. He's been on 60 Minutes. He's a big game hunter. He does all kinds of stuff. So we decided to go with this program. And in one sentence, Capturing Kids' Hearts, what it says is that you have to capture a kid's heart before you capture their mind. So what is it about? It's about building positive relationships with kids. And I think that's what somebody was talking about in here. We spend a whole lot of time building relationships with kids, because without that relationship piece, all of this stuff that we're talking about today would not be possible. The kids would not buy into it. And so we spend a whole lot of time, and we develop that culture. Every person in our building, if they're going to work at Stall, has to be trained in this Capturing Kids' Hearts program. 3 days of intensive training. And we train the janitor, we train the front staff, we train the principal, everybody goes through it. So no one is excluded, because when you walk into that building, we want you to feel it from the moment you're addressed, from the front office all the way to the end. And it's a very positive culture, it's a great work environment, it's a great environment for kids. So the first thing we did was address the culture. The second thing we did is we looked for ways to help our kids become part of that have group instead of the have-nots. So we wrote a SIG grant, and we received a SIG grant for $4 million. And in the second year, we purchased iPads for all of our kids in the school. The only question that I got from people when I said, we'd like to have iPads for all these high-poverty kids, was, they go, Wilson, what are you going to do when they steal them? And I'm like, I never thought of that, you know? I guess we'll do the same thing we do with textbooks. We'll charge them for it. It hasn't been an issue. This is our 6th year with iPads. It hasn't been an issue. We have a take-home model. Several observations that I made about that when we first gave iPads was, one, we were all standing down in the cafeteria waiting for the kids to come off the bus, and man, we were like Hawkeye on them. And they walk in, and the first thing we noticed was it was quieter. Well, you know why it was quieter? Kids were engaged with that technology, and they were talking about it, and they were reading. And I didn't care what they were reading. I was just glad they were reading, because we have 34% of our kids read at or below the 5th grade level. So, you know, all of a sudden, they have those 30,000 volumes of reading material at home. And we get a lot of all that kind of stuff, and work with Comcast, and I won't go into great detail. The second thing that I noticed was that as kids walk down the hallway, they walk differently. They look like scholars. You know, they had their iPad, and they just walked differently, and they felt differently. And so that was the second piece we put in, was the technology. The third piece, in which we're currently working on, in which Dr. Postlewaite mentioned, was the personalized learning piece, blended learning with a lot of digitized technology in place for that. And this has really changed the way that our kids are learning. It is, you know, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, you go in and you sit down in rows, and the teacher had an assigned seat, and they knew me because they always sat me in the front. They wanted me right in front of their desk, you know. And you sat there, and if you had a problem, like let's say if you were in math class, and the teacher's saying 2 plus 2 is 4, and I raised my hand back there and said, I don't understand, the teacher would stop the learning, come back and say, okay, Wilson, what's the problem? And they would go through while everybody else and sat for me to catch up. And so this, in personalized learning, you are on a continuum. The kids are on a continuum. So what happens is the teacher becomes a facilitator in the room. They still do direct instruction. They still do whole classroom instruction. They do mini conferencing. But what happens is kids are learning standards, and they progress once they learn the standard. They don't stop. They don't stop the learning. And so what you see differently in a classroom is when you walk in a classroom, and I know many of you are parents in here, if I asked my child when he was an adolescent in school, hey, how'd school go today? Okay. What'd you do? Nothing. What are you going to do? Nothing. You got any homework? Nah. Okay. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, okay. Got it. All right. So, but the difference is, if you were to come to our school and walk in a classroom, what you would see is you would see kids who would walk up to you and you would ask them, say, hey, how are things going? What are you working on? And they say, well, I'm on this standard, and I'm almost to the next standard, and this is what I got to do. They can actually quote the standard, which is amazing, you know? So that they can articulate what they're doing with their learning. And they have standard operating procedures, everything that's in place. The teacher is moving around the room. And you know the great thing is some of us, probably me in math class, I was not the great math student. So I always felt intimidated by those students who were working the long division and I was still on adding, you know? And so consequently, I probably shied away from that. But in this setting, what happens is the kids who are excelling are encouraged to help those kids that are being challenged. And those kids who are being challenged, what happens is they're encouraged to ask their classmates. And so now you have more than one teacher in that classroom. And it's such a great thing. And you know as well as I do that if you teach something, you learn it better. And so that's what's happening. As a result of that, then we got involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and we've got lots of programs. But I can tell you, I want as many business people, as many community members in our school as we can get. And the reason why, we have nothing to hide, because I'm telling you, it was a bad school when I got there. And so what I found is that kids act differently when you are in the building. And that's a great thing. You know, they're not going to act out. It's just like going to church, you know. And so we have church every day. We invited the police chief. I went and spoke with the police chief. I said, listen, I'd like for you to bring your leadership team over and meet in our school. Now think about this. High poverty school, crime area, yeah. Okay, so 8 o'clock in the morning, the kids roll up and they have probably 40 police cars out front. Yeah. You know what's going on. Kids are going, Mr. Wilson, drug bust today? What's going on? You know? And I'm going, no. They're just here to meet. But what the great thing was the police chief had his leadership team in there. The kids were moving through the hallways. Police officers interacted with the kids. So they're breaking down those barriers. And then the second thing that I noticed happened was we were able to bring in kids and let them sit in on those meetings and actually see what goes on. It was a really cool thing. And then the third thing that happened was we have a very high Hispanic population. When I got there 5 years ago, we had 10%. Today it's 35%, and it's growing rapidly. And what happened was the chief, I wanted him to stay for lunch. So, they finished their meeting and they all went down and sat in the cafeteria and they spread out. So there was no avoiding the police, And so here come the kids, and our first lunch is 9th grade. So here comes the kids, they're running, they can't wait. It was like a glass wall. They ran in, it was like this, And so the police chief and I are sitting there, and they gradually moved in, and they'd go over and sit beside someone, and they'd warm up. But as we sat there, we noticed that all the Hispanic kids were standing over in a corner. They wouldn't sit with the police. And the reason is distrust, because a lot of our kids were being sent back and deported, and they were illegal. And so there was a great distrust. That was a great eye-opener for the police chief, because he changed things in his police department as a result of that, and got into the Hispanic community and started working with those kids. So having people in there, our Ministerial Alliance meets regularly in our building. Great opportunity for those people to be in and interact and have our kids do that. So that's a lot. Our association with the Chamber of Commerce has taken it to a different level. Now we're really working on giving kids experiences and job opportunities while they're in school. The Accelerate Scholarship, we had 11 kids who are going to go to Trident Technical College next year, and they would have never, I'm telling you, never gone there. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the parents standing behind them, but you should see them when they got up there and got that. You would have thought they were going to Duke or Yale. It didn't matter. They felt good, and that self-confidence and that self-actualization. And they may end up at Duke and Yale when they transfer out of Trident Tech. Who knows? But at least they have hope and they have a dream. And that was the great thing about that. And the partnerships that we have got with our business partners, Molly is a business that we do with, and they interact with our pre-engineering program. And I can remember one program that they were working on reverse engineering. I don't even know what engineering is, but they're reversing it, okay? So what happened was they brought in a radiator, and the kids sat there and they took it apart, and they were able to see that reverse engineering, how that works. What a great thing that was. Because if you're like me, I'm a visual learner. That is a great opportunity. Boeing is one of our great partners. They work with our robotics team. So I've talked a lot, but I would like to share one story with you just to kind of sum up my part. Mary knows I can talk forever. My first year there, I was standing in the hallway and watching kids go back and forth. And I saw this one kid, and he was just bouncing off the walls, and his name, and I didn't know who it was. I said, "Who is that kid?" And they said, "Oh, that's Zori." I said, "Zori, go to class. Zori, do this. Zori, do..." All year long, it was Zori, do this, do that, do this. Well, come to find out, Zori lived in the most dangerous neighborhood in Charleston. I took him home one time, and he said, "Now, Mr. Wilson," he says, "as soon as you drop me off, you lock that door and you get out of here." I go, "You don't have to tell me twice." So he goes, that first year I suspended him multiple times. I talked to him. I had him in my office. I called his parent. He had a brother who I expelled a couple of times. So Zori, at the end of that year, his mother comes to school. It was the day before school out. I'll never forget this. Comes, and the front office calls me and says, "Hey, Kim, Miss Green's here." And I go, "Just a minute." I pick up. We have 2 police officers in our school, resource officers. I pick up the phone. I call them. I say, "Hey, listen, I need you to come over and sit in my conference room. And if you hear any furniture moving, break down the door, because I'm going to need some help." And so Miss Green comes in. It was just the opposite. She comes in and she hugs me and kisses me, and she goes, "Mr. Wilson, I just want to thank you for what you did for Zori." And I'm going, "We talking about the same kid?" I said, "All I did was suspend him all year long. He was, it was terrible." She goes, "No, he really likes you." I go, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, you know his name. That one thing, you know his name." And I thought, well, we can do that. If that's all it takes, we'll know every kid's name. So to make a long story short, he transferred into his junior year. And Zori, he didn't become a scholar or anything, but he started making better grades, and he went out for football and wrestling and became quite proficient wrestler. And in his junior year, he qualified for the state tournament in the 165 weight class. We haven't had a wrestler at Stall do that for a year, so it was a big deal. And so I go home and I tell my wife. Now, my wife is only about this tall, and I go, "Hey, Betsy, we're going to get to go to the state wrestling tournament." She goes, "I don't think so." I go, "No, you're at Zori's wrestling." So she acquiesced. You know, she's a good principal's wife. So we drive 5 hours up to this place on Friday night. Zori's wrestling the first night, you know. So he gets out there and he's wrestling this boy, and his mother's there with her friend, and me and Betsy. So we're the cheering squad, and we're out there cheering. There's thousands of people in this gymnasium. And what happened next? He's beating this guy 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 8-0, 10-3, and with about 10 seconds left, that guy turns Zori over and pins. We were devastated. And Zori gets up, runs out of the room, and crying. And if you know anything about high poverty kids, they just give up, you know, when they're faced with adversity. So I went to his mother and I said, "Listen, you got to go out there and tell him if he wins the next 3 matches, he could still finish third in the state," which was a pretty good deal. I didn't tell her they had to wrestle at 8, 10, and 12, but who cares? So, you know, so she goes out there and she gets him all straightened up. So the next morning, Betsy and I are there at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're looking for his mom. And what had happened was Mom didn't have enough money to get a hotel room, so she went back in the middle of the night. But Grandpa and Grandma came up, and so they had passed in the middle of the night somewhere. So it was me and Betsy and Grandma and Grandpa there cheering him on. And the first match at 8 o'clock in the morning, he draws the number 1 seed at 165 because this kid had lost his match too. And I'm going, well, we made it to the state tournament. That's a great thing. So what happened was he gets out there and he's wrestling. This guy's beating him like 2-0, 6-0, 5-0, 8-0. I'm going, oh man, this is terrible. And I turned my back because I couldn't watch it anymore. And I hear this, "Pin him," and I turn around and it's my wife, and I go, "I thought you didn't like wrestling." She goes, "Shut up, Wilson." And so Zori had turned that guy over with about 10 seconds left and pinned him. So now we're into the next round, you know. And so he draws the boy, and he's at 10 o'clock, and he's wrestling the boy, wrestling. And he's losing. Same thing. It's like 12-0. But then again, he does the same thing. With 10 seconds, he turns that boy over and pins him. And man, now we're into the third place. We are so excited. We can't hardly stand ourselves. Grandma is so tired. We just pull up a chair right next to the mat. She's sitting there like this. Grandpa's taking pictures, you know. And so he gets out there in the final match. And I'm like fumbling around with my, you know, I want to record this history, you know. And I'm not very good at this, so. I'm fumbling around with it, and I hear this, pin him! I look down, there's Betsy screaming again, and this, within 5 seconds, he has this boy on his back, pinned him. Zori jumps up, he runs over to the coach's arm, jumps in the coach's arm, and the coach is going, no, you got to go back and get your hand raised. So he runs back up, gets his hand raised, you know. And then he runs out, and he jumps into his grandfather's arms, and there's big crocodile tears. I'm crying, my wife's crying, everybody in the whole place is crying. He runs over to me and he jumps in my arms. He goes, "Mr. Wilson, we won. And I go, "No, you won." He goes, "No, we won." And so when we were driving back, we had a lot of time to think about stuff, 5 hours. So I said, "Betsy, you know, I think I know what Zori was trying to tell us. As a school, all the things that we had put in place, you know, these opportunities to get scholarships, the opportunity to go to Trident Tech, the opportunity to go to the workforce, the opportunity to learn differently and learn at your own pace, the capturing kids' hearts, the culture piece that we put in, it all came together for Zori. And this kid had a hope and a dream. And so that year we found enough money to send him to Appalachian State for wrestling camp. Now this is a kid who's nobody in his family ever graduated from high school, let alone college. And so we send him up there, and he, in the middle of the summer, I was working, and I get a call from the front office, and they say, "Mr. Wilson, Zori's mother's here, and Zori's here." Well, I know she ain't gonna whip me now, so I run over there where she's at, And they were in the guidance department, and we hugged and we talked, and I said, how was camp? And he goes, oh, it was great. I said, what'd you do? And he says, I got to wrestle a college wrestler. I said, how'd you do? And he goes, oh, it was great. He broke my nose, it was bleeding. It was great. And so I said, well, you know, his mother said, yeah, and he made all kinds of good friends and everything. And you know the kinds of friends he made were the same kind of kids that he wanted to be, who had a hope and a dream, and they were going to college, and they had aspirations to do that. And so he's with a whole different group of friends, you know, people who were motivated, totally different from what he grew up in. And I said, Zori, what are you doing here anyway? And he goes, Mr. Wilson, I'm here to get my transcript and see what I need to do to go to college. And now you remember that 9th grade kid who had no hope, no dream, no aspiration, no idea that he would ever be in this position. But now he's going to college. Fast forward, Zori just finished his 2nd year of junior college. He wrestled, was a great wrestler, and now he's going on to a 4-year college. He regularly comes back and visits. But those are the kinds of things, if you want to really drive it down to what makes a difference when you all get involved, when higher education gets involved, and when the community and Chamber of Commerce gets involved, those are the kinds of things that can happen. And I really can't thank you enough for what you do for the children in Lexington County, and I appreciate you being here today. So I know I was long-winded, but thank you.
Feedback. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Emily Reynolds. I'm with Heritage Trust Federal Credit Union, and I'm here to share a little bit about our journey with the career academies, as well as opening credit unions in 2 local high schools last year. Heritage Trust has been in the community since 1955. Here in Charleston, we started as the Air Force Base Credit Union, and we serve around 40,000 members in the area in 4 counties here. We have been involved with all of the school districts for many years. We've worked with Charleston County Schools and their Gear Up program for economically challenged families and children. We've worked with the entrepreneurship program. We've worked in many different capacities with the schools for years. When the career academies came about, and Mary and Robin presented that to us as an opportunity from the business side, it was a natural fit for us. Being a credit union, we're all about people helping people, and we are a low-income designated credit union as well, so we really do serve everyone. Just this past weekend, we were in the North area conducting financial education seminar in Spanish to the Hispanic community in the North area. So we really try to do a lot of outreach in different areas. As far as the career academies, the Chamber presented us with an opportunity to be a part of the first Business and Finance Academy, which again was in our wheelhouse. This is what we do. So we were excited about that and got on board probably about 2 years ago. Putting a credit union in a school was something that has been on our radar for many, many years. We actually approached the colleges first, and timing was not great. It was not something that was a priority for them at the time. Berkeley County School District reached out to us, and they had actually seen a credit union on one of their visits up to Nashville in a high school, and they really wanted to make it happen, and we said, let's do it. So our credit union group went with individuals from the school district to Florida, to the Jacksonville area, and we toured ViStar Credit Union. They have multiple student branches in many different schools there, including Title I schools, and we took away best practices from ViStar, sat down with the school district and worked out a plan and an agreement, and met with the teachers in the program to try to combine the Career Academy curriculum with what we were going to do in the school branch. So started down that path, and we onboarded students. We put them through an interview process, so they actually had to apply for the job. And so the teachers were involved in this, their parents were involved, the students that wanted to be a part of the program. And they went through the whole new hire onboarding process, and we hired them and trained them for 2 weeks. We paid them over the summer. And around that same time as all of this was going, and we had this project plan, and we were ready to roll it out, we had another school district that wanted to be involved, Dorchester School District. And so very quickly, we were then onboarding 2 schools at the same time. So one of our best practices in Jacksonville that they recommended was to only do 1 school at a time, to only onboard 1 school at a time. But we made it work, and so last summer, we trained 25 students and 2 teachers for the different schools. We also had to identify an area in the schools to build the branch as far as the construction piece. So we worked with our vendors. We have a lot of vendors on the technology side, on the security side. So we work with them to donate equipment. And even our signage vendors donated equipment and signage to help us with the branding of the schools. And then the schools also provided some resources for us. So over the summer, the students were getting trained, they were going out in branches, they were paired with coaches to help them with the learning. So we had in-classroom learning and then on-the-job learning. And again, they were paid for that time. This is a great first job experience for them. And we had students from that were freshmen all the way to seniors, so the full gamut. And that was very exciting because we hoped that the next year, some of the younger students could come back and continue to work at the credit union branch. So as far as the construction, got the buildings completed, we got the equipment up and running, testing, and then the fall, when the school year came around, we actually had our grand openings. And so the students were in their locations, they were opening accounts for other students and teachers, they were providing financial education. So we taught them through the course of the training, not just the finance piece, not just balancing and compliance. We also taught them marketing, the soft skills that, and one of the divisions I manage is HR, but you know, we're hiring for universal employees that, yes, they can balance and they can adhere to the compliance side, but we're looking for individuals that have sales and service experience, that can participate in marketing and PR and all of those things. So these students learned a variety of skills, not just the IT, again, or the compliance or account balancing side. And the teachers that were trained work with them in the branch. And so the branches are open during lunch periods. So when they move into the school year, they actually get class credit that coordinates with their Career Academy program or track that they're on. So it works out really, really well, and they're excited, and we have some great stories. This year, going into this year, we were planning to rehire a lot of these students for this fall, and we had another school that wanted to be on board, Cane Bay High School, and that's in a developing area in the north area. So we are in the middle of configuring a branch or building a branch in their school right now. That's going on now, and we have over 50 students that we're training in about 2 weeks, putting them through our program. So we're very, very excited about it. I think we have some great stories, as I mentioned. One student that stands out, and I've been part of the interview process with these students on the onboarding side and kind of watching them and seeing how they're progressing. And the parental involvement is key, the school involvement and the school commitment is key for school districts that are on board. I just would encourage any of you that are in local businesses to start having these conversations with your local schools and get an understanding of what their challenges are and how you can help enhance their programs. Because really sitting down and understanding the curriculum is key and identifying those opportunities. But the one story I wanted to tell, just a minute ago, I was mentioning that we had a student that was he had learning disability, economically challenged home situation. We actually had to find a way to get him to the program, transportation-wise, and he was successful in the program. He's still in the program. I think he's a junior this year. Because of the program, because he learned how to interview and work a job and having that responsibility, he actually has applied for and just received a part-time position at a local company, so he's working while he's in school. And this is a kid that probably would have been lost in the system had he not learned the skills to how to interview and how to apply and get a job. So it's exciting to be a part of. And again, we're hoping to expand more, even in Kim's school at some point in the Charleston County area. And we've considered doing a bilingual type credit union at Kim's school as well. Those are things we're exploring. But it's definitely a commitment of time and resources, but I think there's no greater commitment when you recognize locally that there is such a huge gap between the kids that are trying to graduate high school and then the jobs that are being created here locally and the need. We're also part of the youth apprenticeship program that Mary mentioned with Trident Tech. We've onboarded our first IT person to be a part of that program, and that's an area where being a mid-sized business is, you have turnover in IT positions because they can leave with the skills that they have, move to a larger city. So having turnover in those positions, we want to hire locally. If we can train these students, pay for them to go to Trident Tech, and then come to work for us, what a great fit. I mean, that's how we have to be thinking as businesses for succession planning, for talent development, and for career development with our own companies as we move forward. So if you have any questions about how to get started, we're helping other credit unions in South Carolina get started in the school districts. Please reach out to me through Mary or your contacts. And again, I can't say enough, it's been a really great experience, and I hope it just continues to grow. Thank you.
After hearing Kim's story, that everyone's shocked that he wants one of these branches in his high school. So, Robin, can you just for a couple of minutes tell us how we identify the businesses that we're out recruiting to be partners, and what's that onboarding look like for them?
We identify, we first look at our members and look at what the school needs. To be honest, we talk to as many businesses as possible. It's really an ongoing education process, getting the business to understand that it is a time commitment, but we hope it doesn't suck your business dry, although these guys just keep working harder for us. So not every partner is as awesome as Heritage Trust Federal Credit Union. But we really try to find a place for almost every business. If you're not an engineering company, we can probably use you in finance. If you're not, if you don't have a financial department, which of course everybody does, you might have an IT department. If you, you may have a strong person working in your marketing department that you know would enjoy the outreach. The business is very important, but equally as important is that contact that you're talking to. It's really, of course, all of this is really a people business. The teachers are people, the district people, they're all just people getting to know one another. So one thing that the Chamber, I believe, one of the best services that we've provided in career academies is helping that succession. If we've got a fantastic business partner that's been with us for 3 years, and that contact, the person that's been coming to the advisory board meetings, if that contact gets another job or gets a promotion or has a baby, quite often that's where the school loses them, not because not through any fault of their own, they just get busy and they don't find that next contact. So one of the services we provide is just kind of staying at them until they find a new contact within that business and then re-onboarding them. As Mary said, we do take our onboarding fairly seriously. We like for the business to know what they're getting into and to be excited about it. We do in August each year. The schools have told us, they told us the first year that there were not going to be any advisory board meetings the first month of school because things are a little bit crazy. I'm sure that happens in Kentucky as well. And we said, all right, our businesses are too excited not to get started. What can we do if we can't be in the schools in August? So we said, all right, the Chamber will play the part of hosting the businesses in August outside of the school, and that's where our first all-academy kind of onboarding came about. Was the businesses were ready to get started, and the schools weren't quite ready to have them. So we had I think a cocktail party that first year at one of our local restaurants, and just did as good a job as we could at thanking them and hoping that they'd be excited about the school where they were going to be. We certainly take seriously when a business says, you know, we might want to be at a different school. We listen to that. Maybe we can reassure them to stay at that school, or maybe we can find another place. I mean, our job is really to keep it going.
Thank you. Audience questions about what you've heard today? Does anyone?
I wore 'em out.
You did wear them out. You did tell great stories. Okay. Well, I think that's it. We're going to keep on keeping you back on time. How about that? All right?
We do have, and be sure you tip your waiters and make sure they're happy, because I think Kim's going to do his second act in the next few minutes, so hang around for that. We really do appreciate this, and let me kind of tie it together. We have asked you to participate, interact with us with your Slido act. Question we just got was, what is Lexington doing? Are we doing anything with this Career Academy structure? I'm glad you asked. Yes. One of the initiatives that we have been working on with Manny and the Fayette County Public School System through our Business Education Network, I lost Betsy, where'd she go? But
Right there.
Betsy Dexter is leading our effort there, as we in Lexington are working with the Ford Motor Company on their new generation learning process. That is the Career Academy's pathway that we're talking about. So all of this is not only relevant, it's exactly what we're talking about doing in Fayette County, and we wanted you to be exposed to that. The business community, as you have heard, is absolutely critical to the success of this program. And these programs, and we've seen that, we're hearing about them in Charleston, we've seen them in Tampa, we've seen them in Nashville, and every community is telling us the same thing. The story is the same. Attendance is up, interest is up, graduation rates are up, pregnancy is down, delinquencies are down, all suspensions are down. These things really are working because we're engaged with the students. They are equal players in this process. And so we're going to do the same thing in Lexington with the great help of Manny and his team, and we're going to have these same successes. We're also going to have the same challenges that we've heard about this morning. There are still achievement gap issues that we have to concentrate on. We have to make sure that there is equality with each child, knowing that he or she has the interest. We're going to know, Kim, their names. And that's important in making all of this happen. So as we connect the dots here, you can see how much success we can get. And from the business perspective, not even counting the workforce development and training that we're going to end up with many more career-ready students who will be becoming productive adults. But there's an economic factor, and I'm sure our Board of Education members will agree that when attendance goes up, and it does dramatically, 3 points, 5 points, in some cases 10 and 12 points, every one of those kids that comes to class we get paid for. The schools have more revenue now to do more things. So there's an economic factor that impacts all of us. We can translate that into perhaps maybe less taxes or not so rapid a growth on them. So it all ties together, and we appreciate very much your comments this morning. We're excited to be joining this effort, and the business community is going to be called on. Just as you heard here, your influence is what's going to make this thing go. So thank you all for that. We appreciate, Linda, we have a couple of gifts for you as well.